What is up, guys, and welcome to my For Honor builds videos, where basically it's going to be a series of videos where I'm going to look at all the heroes that I have, at least rep 8, and talk about the best perks, feats that you can use for team modes. So those team modes that I'm going to look and talk about are Breach Attackers, Breach Defenders, and Dominion, obviously. And for each of the heroes, I'm also going to talk about the particular roles they might play, and also look at different loadouts of perks that sometimes are required for those game modes. This is going to be different for each hero, honestly. So, for example, we'll start off with Warden today, and for Warden I only have one loadout of perks. I will talk about different feats for sure that are important for different modes, but it's going to be one loadout in this particular case. Expect for other videos to have different loadouts. The reason I'm making these videos is because I feel like it's a type of video that I wish I could watch or want to watch. It's the type of content that I wish existed before this, honestly, because I think it's extremely helpful to have kind of a better idea what type of feats and perks work the best for each hero. I'm by no means an expert, by the way, or a pro or anything. I just played this game a bit too much, and I've gathered some experience, and hopefully you'll find some use out of these videos if you're continuing to watch them, that is, of course. But let's start off with the perks. Also, before I'm gonna go into the perks of Warden, and I swear I'll only do this for this particular video, is that I also want to stand at and talk about how the perk system works exactly, because I can imagine that it is a bit confusing. There's an article of Ubisoft, which I will put in the pinned comment of this video and also in the description, that talks about the entire perk system. And the perk system, how it works is that you can have a different combination of certain perks to make use of. So the importance of reaching rep 8, and also why I said I'll only do videos of heroes that are rep 8, is because at rep 8 you can actually have combinations of 3 perks or 2 perks, but better perks than heroes that are lower than rep 8. So the article says that they basically, as you can see this list right here, this list will be the same for every other hero. If you open up your any gear item of a hero, you'll be presented by this particular list, right? So how this list works is that how they did it is they categorized all the perks from top to bottom in letters. So the first is A all the way to the last, which is G. So I'm gonna explain it in the same manner, and again, if you want to have more of a textual explanation, read the article. But how it works is at rep 8, and I'm also only gonna talk about rep 8 because I don't know how it works at the lower reps. At rep 8 there's 3 types of combination of perks. The first type of combination is that you have 3 perks which are from A, B, C, D perks. So I can, for example, have Shields Up, Devourer, and Endurance. The second type of combination is the one you see right now. I can have 2 perks out of the A, B, C, D perks and 1 perk out of the E, F, G perks, which is in this case Headhunter. And the third type of combination of perks at rep 8, again this is that you can have only 2 perks, but they're out of the EFG combinations. For example, I could have Warden with Headhunter and Fresh Focus, but nothing from above, because these count as sort of special or higher level perks, so you can only have 2 of them. So that's in a nutshell how the perk system works. Let's go to the perks that Warden has. Warden, like the other 2 vanilla Vanguards, which are Kensei and Raider, has access to 4, and Janhu actually, has access to 4 offensive perks and 3 defensive perks, which are presented here. Let me just quickly go over why I picked the perks I did. So for me, when playing Warden or any Vanguard, to be honest, is I'm trying to look at survivability and anti-ganking abilities. For Warden, it's pretty important that you can heal pretty fast, or actually just any hero that has access to Devourer. I'll just be plain. I always use it. It's kind of like the vengeful barrier of offensive perks. Devourer is really strong because it basically will turn any execution to a much better version of that execution. So any 50 health execution will become a 65 health execution, which is insanely important. Especially if you pick an execution, which I'll show you, which has a really high kill time. Then I picked Endurance because I felt like the other A, B perks, or the other perks that I could choose from these top 4, which is not that strong, especially for mid clearing, and I'll go into that a bit later. And the EFG perks, again, I just didn't think. I only picked Headhunter because I thought it was the best, to be frank. So why didn't I pick any of these perks? Let's start with these two. So Shields Up is actually a pretty good perk. The reason I didn't pick it is because I don't see the point of it as someone who is mainly in the mid lane. That's as simple as it gets, because every time you're in the mid lane and you get hit by minions, the shield that you get from this perk will basically be chipped off one by one until there's nothing left. And as you know from the description, you only get it back when you spawn or get revived. But for me, I think when I'm playing a Warden or any other Vanguard, I just don't see the insane importance of having Shields Up. It's just something that I would only pick if I don't want any of the other perks. And the reason I also picked Endurance is because, I forgot to say this, is that Warden is one of, I think, the only Vanguard that does not have access to a first feat stamina related perk. The other Vanguards, including Tiandi, have either a cost reduction feat or a stamina recovery feat, at the first feat, that is. But Warden doesn't, so I think Endurance is therefore important for him. I think he's also the only hero, the only Vanguard that I have rep 8, at least rep 8, where I have Endurance for that reason. Aegis is not a strong feat or perk in my opinion, because it just doesn't really prove to be that strong. The only places that you are consistently benefiting from Aegis is in Revenge, and if you pick Shields Up consistently, that's where you're, like, every game you can benefit from those two. But that Shields Up will only go to 18 health, and your Revenge will go up to 120 health instead of 100 health shields, which you already have. The only time I actually die in a Revenge is if it's a 1v4. And I'm like getting slapped on the ground by a Centurion somewhere, or I'm getting wall splat by someone. Those are the only times where I get absolutely ganked and destroyed, for that matter, where I feel like Aegis is not gonna save my ass. Like, it's just such a weird place to have it, that benefit, that I just don't see the point of it. And the occasional places where you can benefit from Aegis is obviously in Breach, where you pick up the shield buff. And if you have a teammate that has Phalanx, like Centurion and Jungjun, or if you have a Black Prior in team. But again, that's super situational, and I don't feel like I don't pick perks, mostly at least, on the fact of situations, certain situations. Survival Instinct is arguably the worst perk in the game. Again, my opinion. Same way as Last Stand. Those both work in critical health. And the question is, what is critical health? Critical health is anything below your first health bar, which is below 25 health. I think this is what makes Survival Instinct worse than Last Stand, is that encourages you to attack, but I don't see I don't even see the stimulation or the point of attacking when you're at below 25 health. Any heavy attack will take you out, basically. Before you hit that health, I'm pretty sure you've already tried to parry and block as much as you could, but still ended up in that situation. So it's so situational. I can never imagine a situation, actually. It's an absolute, like, below D tier, like a Z tier fucking perk. It's just so bad. I don't see the point of this in this game at all. Like, I can understand Last Stand can be, like, extremely 1 in 1,000 situation where this could be helpful, but why might this be helpful at all? By the time you threw out a zone, some Lawbringer has already top-lighted you and you're dead. Like, no. And Fresh Focus is one of those perks, to me at least, that looks really great on paper, but in practice just doesn't work. So this is how you have to conceptualize it, right? So it only works when you're out of stamina, that's number one, which is bad. And it only works when you counter guard break, block, or parry attacks. Now this is why it's bad. Why would anyone that has an opener at least guard break you at all? And why would they start attacking you if they have no openers? At least on my level, it just doesn't happen. Oh, it just doesn't really happen at all. And why would you parry out of stamina? It literally will only give you 20% stamina. Again, to put it into practice, how much is 20% stamina? Okay, so Warden, I think, has 120 stamina, just like most of the heroes. 20% stamina is 24 stamina. 24 stamina. Like, that might take you 2 seconds? Maybe 1.5 seconds to get back? Is it that worth it to go for an out of stamina parry to get 24 stamina back? I think not. To me, I've tried it. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I've tried it and it just doesn't work. And by the way, also to end up on this entire thing, I think this is the loadout I use for everything, for Breach, for both sides of Breach, and for Dominion. I can see maybe an argument for using shields up instead of Headhunter in Breach. However, the counter argument to that would be, you can actually, since you have more time in the game, you can actually execute. You have more time to execute, so you might get that plus 16. The other good thing about it is that you can heal into that health, whereas shields up only works when you spawn or die, or basically die, and then get either revived or respawn back. Let's go into the feats. Let's start off with Dominion. First feat, body count. I already talked about the mid lane a little bit. Vanguard's great mid lane clearers. Warden is maybe one of the worst. Maybe better than Tiandi actually, but he's not better than Kenze and Raider, but it's still a better option than the other ones he has. Conqueror just doesn't work for Dominion that well, because there's just you can't utilize on what it provides. And Combat Me is bad because no, let me rephrase that. It's not a bad feat, but this is why I don't like it, is because yes, I've seen the place where you use Combat Me is at the mid lane, because you can get more renown from each minion that you kill. However, is that once you reach your 4th feat, it becomes an obsolete feat, because there's like any renown you get, it just doesn't matter anymore. You got all your feats already, and renown is only, and I have to I'll repeat it, it's only useful to get feats. Score is important to win a Dominion match, for example, but Combat Me is just a way to get quicker to your 4th feats. But honestly, like, the Stalwart Banner is not even the strongest feat that you can get. I think Thick Blood and Second Wind are stronger, and I'll talk about that right now actually. It's a good transition. Thick Blood is, I think, entirely unique to Warden. I might be wrong on that, but I think it is. I just wanted to understand how strong this is, right? So think about all the heroes that do bleed damage, and then forget them, because they won't do crap to you. Especially, I think the strongest out of the bleed damage heroes is Shaman. All the other ones like Nobushi and Shinobi are very low in the tier list. Sorry to any mains I've offended, but it's just objectively the truth. But Shaman, it works. Her entire kit is around making the enemy bleed, and then on any other attacks while the opponent is bleeding, the Shaman will get health from that, and also they can go for the 50 damage punish. But with Thick Blood, you kind of just neglect that entirely. Obviously, you won't neglect that entirely, but for 3 seconds, and until you get the cooldown down. And if we look at the other options, Fiat Lux is bad, because it's bad in the sense that in the AoE where you throw it at, which the description does not say, of course, it also stuns and takes out your teammates' stamina, not only the enemy. And this is the cherry on the cake. If you stand in the AoE, you will also get the same effect happen to you. It's just not a. It looks good on paper, but it just doesn't work. If friendly fire didn't exist, sure, it was probably a really good feat. But since it doesn't, it's not. Simple as that. And Inspire is actually also a good feat. I've seen some Wardens use it. Great because it gives a little attack buff to you and anyone who's standing near you, because there is an AoE. And your minions will fight faster, so getting the mid lane back is quite a bit faster, since you don't have to actually individually have to kill all of the minions to get the mid lane back. Your soldiers, your minions, will just help you take down the enemy minions when this is active. So it's not a bad feat at all, but it's just that Thick Blood is so strong. Second Wind, yeah, obvious options. That's obvious choice. I just wanted to understand how strong up Second Wind is. Like, it's easily the strongest feat in the game. This is for the simple reason that it's an instant 50 health that you get, and any fire and bleed damage that has happened to you, which mostly come from either heroes that do that, not the fire but the bleed, but also any bleed or fire damage you take from feats such as Fire Flask or the bleed bomb or whatever that Orochi has and some other assassins. Those will be entirely neglected when you press a Second Wind. Like, well, for Fire Flask you have to walk out of the fire first, but the other ones, the blood traps, you entirely neglect them. Yes, you will still be out of stamina, sure, but you only have taken that initial damage and that's all. And you heal yourself entirely from that bleed. It's so strong. And a bit of like it's OP actually. Puno Mortis isn't bad. It's just kind of the same story here. It's just that a better feat exists, and yeah, it just kind of neglects it. And this was just a meme feat. I don't even know why this exists. It's kind of like the slippery of feats. And the fourth feats, it's catapult. Like any bombs that knights are absolute memes. They're jokes. You should never use them. Like any knight, which is I think almost every knight except Blackbriar, has access to bomb feats, but just don't ever use them. They're just so slow. Like catapult has a very small AoE for a huge bomb. What they should have done is just have a consecutive amount of catapults, like Spearstorm for example. But as a small AoE, it takes super long for it to impact, and by that time it's super easy for the attackers, or the opponents rather, to roll out of the AoE, so they won't take any damage. And the AoE is so small because it's a single catapult that is thrown, is that it maybe can take out half the minion lane for something that also takes 3 minutes to cool down, by the way. It's not like Ignos Ember of Lawbringer, which has like a 10-second cooldown for the next grenade. This has a 3-minute cooldown. It's just so bad. Morale booster I used to use, actually, I'm not gonna lie. It's not so strong anymore. Morale booster has been nerfed from 30 seconds to 20 seconds duration. And it's also been nerfed from 50% damage increase to 30% damage increase. I think the biggest reason I switched off from it is because of the duration. I'm not gonna lie. 30% is not bad, but it's just 20 seconds is so little amount of time. It's just not good for that reason. A Stalwart Banner is basically a second wind, but it's like a static, continuous second wind, which also does heal, I think, more than double of second wind. It's just a little over 100 health. It's good because it just does the same things as second wind. It will entirely neglect a fire flask or any bomb which does bleed or fire damage, and yeah, you and your teammates will continuously heal. But for Warden, it's probably most or strongest when trying to defend the mid lane in important situations. That is where Stalwart Banner really shines, and it does. So that's it for Dominion. Let's move on to the Breach Attackers feats. The only things I'm going to change actually is just Conqueror, and despite shitting on it the entire time, Morale Booster. Yeah, so Conqueror is good in Breach. It's not in Dominion because you just can't utilize it that well. It's only just to capture zones quicker, but it's only 15% quicker, which is not that fast. Why is it good for Breach though? Is because ramparts take much longer than a zone in Dominion to capture, and this does help because 15% will start to seem like a significant amount. Also helps taking back the healing zone, but also the most important part about it is that you also heal faster in the healing zone, which is something I find the most important because breach matches are super volatile, so you have to keep running back and forth to the different objectives. So having the ability to heal quicker and to go back to the different objective, I think is super nice. And that's just the first half. The second half of it is obviously that the boost lasts longer. So any buffs that you pick up, which exist in Breach, like the attack buff and the running buff, will last longer. So you'll have an extra period of time where you can make use of your attack buffers, for example, which is, again, super helpful. The second and third feat, I think, are just too strong defensively that I would just keep them. And the fourth feat, Morale Booster. Why? Because, yes, it has a 3-minute cooldown, but it is a free attack buff. So if the attack buff is is captured by the enemy team, now you can actually make sure that all of your teammates have that extra attack buff. And it's important because it will help your teammates to, for example, kill your pikemen, to get the enemy team off of the shield banner, stuff like that. And the greatest part about it is that, yes, it has a 3-minute cooldown, but a Breach match, on average at least, will take about 3 times longer than a Dominion match. So you can actually use Morale Booster multiple times. And I forgot to say, Morale Booster you can actually use very effectively against the commander, for example. So I think because you can use it multiple times, whereas in Dominion it's once, because there's just not enough time to use it multiple times, because at the time you get to the 4th feat, the match is pretty much in its late stages. But in Breach, you get into the 4th feat pretty early on in the game, so you can use the morale booster multiple times, which is really helpful for you and your entire team. For defense, I would literally make one change, and that's just change it to Stalwart Banner, and for the simple fact that it heals the commander. I think that's so important and so helpful, especially when you have Raiders in the other team or something, or any Viking honestly in the other team, or even Samurais that will pick a Fire Flask or Arrow Storm, and that will do a lot of damage to your commander. But if they throw a Fire Flask, the commander will entirely negate the fire entirely. So, and it heals him 100 health, over 100 health. I'll keep the rest the same. If you want to be more aggressively though, the alternative would be Pugno Mortis. That's the only thing I'll say. But the rest I would keep entirely the same. It's just too good, and the rest is just not that great. The rest of the options. So that's it for the feats for all different game modes. The executions, which I ironically do not have myself. The best ones I think are Blackstone Bash, because it's a very short execution. It's one of the oldest also, for Warden, but it's a very good execution because, man, you just get your 50 health in such a short time. The entire execution is literally just on the minimum amount for something to count as 50 health execution, and yeah, the kill time is great too. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's very good, that's for sure. That's the first execution you should be looking for. If you want a good execution, and taking out the trash is probably the second one I would say. I think it heals 20, but if it's not, then I'll put it on the screen. But again, if you have Devourer, that will be turned into a 35 health execution, which is great. Does a little over a bar of heals a little over a bar of health. And it's very quick. That's the most important part, that someone, for example in Breach, I can imagine, you want to make sure that no one can revive that person, and they have to run all the way back to the objective, which is a bigger pain in the ass in Breach than Dominion. This can be a really important execution in that sense. So those two are the best executions, in my opinion, that Warden has access to. And that goes for Breach and Dominion alike. The rest is just, the stuff I picked is just very, yeah, theatrical, just looks nice, but that's also subjective. But anyways, that's gonna be the video. I hope this was a helpful video. Make sure to leave any questions in the comment section. If you have any tips or any suggestions, if you've played Warden much longer than I have, which is totally possible because I don't have him that high, then leave me any suggestions on what has worked for you, so we can all benefit from that. And yeah, if you obviously didn't like the video, dislike it. If you liked the video, like it. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.